Hello everyone, so now we're going to go into the dashboards. So in the previous video we created the layout, which was really just the beginning of it, right? So we have this really crude layout that we have, and we want to actually continue and add more stuff to it, of course. And what we're going to do is actually tackle the dashboards piece. So this is going to be a big one. Basically what we want to get to is this structure here. So right now what we can see here is the accounts, we can see the goals, we can see the transactions. Essentially what we can do here is that we can click on the category of an account type, and then this will actually filter to just get this, right? So, and we can see as well that the assets here are changing, the number is changing as well. So we want to get to that point here. We can see as well here that we have the goals and we have the transactions here, and we see that if we hover over those transaction points, we get the actual amount of transactions for this month. And of course, not to mention, we also have the new goal action, which we'll see in the next video. Okay, so we're starting from this, right? So from the layout video that we did just before. And so right now we're going to see kind of our three main pieces, which is going to be cut up into those three interfaces that we're going to be using, right? So accounts overview, goals overview, transactions overview, that's going to be the goal that we're going to be doing. And so for each, we're going to go through, and actually I'm going to show you how to do those things. So we're going to start with the accounts overview, and essentially I'm going to be opening up the accounts overview here. And so here what we're going to be doing is kind of making sure that the data is there first, and we're going to be using a bit of expression mode, but also we're going to try to use design mode. So one thing that I want to do actually right now, just to get in the style of it, I'm going to actually change in the card layout here on the right. I'm going to be able to go in and say that the shape will be rounded, and that I want to have, I don't want to show the border, and I want to show the shadow. This is just like a styling thing, so it doesn't really change anything in terms of features, but still important. So let's go to our subtasks here. I'm going to zoom in here. First thing we're going to be doing is set up the data and declare the local variables. So right now we just want to do account type selection. And so here we're going to go into the expression mode to be able to declare this local variable. So a tip here to be able to not break everything is just to kind of, either you can collapse this with the little kind of toggle button here, and then basically put some space here to declare the local variables. This is a good thing to be able to avoid breaking your kind of interface. And so here we're going to be calling it account type selection. So this will store which account type we've selected. And so here I'm going to be removing this parentheses and just putting this parenthesis here, and then always a good measure to actually format and say that, this is all formatted and right. We do get a warning here because it says that we're not using this variable, which is normal. We're going to be using it later on today. So going back to my dashboards subtask here. So this is good. Then we're going to go into the root of the card layouts and create a section layout and then two columns. And you'll see what it will look like, again, because with Appian, it's good because you can actually see the results right away. So here in my card layout, what I can do is actually go into the design mode and look for my section layouts. This, kind of saves me some time to not need to actually write up everything here. So this will be accounts in the label. We can always add an icon here, but no need for here. And then I'm going to have a divided line probably below or above the content. Let's see. Above the content looks good. Cool. So we have this, and then we're going to be pulling in two columns. And those two columns will be the structure for our card here. So if we look at what we have here, we have one column here on the left and one column here on the right. So we're going to be doing that structure here. All right. So we're going to be focusing on the first column here. If I look at my dashboard subtask here, I'm going to go for the left column, and we're going to be actually getting in a pie chart field. And we're going to be doing a bit of aggregation here and utilizing a lot of the cool features that Appian has around, with all synced records. You're going to be able to actually do some aggregation, which is going to be pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and go into pie chart field. So here I'm going to drag and drop this pie chart here. I'm going to remove the label here because it's going to be a bit awkward if we just kind of do here with the with a label. So what we want to do is actually get the accounts, and basically we want to group by type of account. So here we're going to be going in and looking for the record type, and I'm going to be looking for my accounts here. Cool. So right away it actually offers me one type of grouping, which is not right because it's grouping by name, and because we have one account per name, we have basically not really a pie chart here. So I'm going to remove this primary grouping here on the right and actually use the related record, which is the type, and I want to put value here. So you see, this is super cool because with a synced record, you're able to actually aggregate on a related record without having to create a view or anything else. So here I have a type value here, which is good. And basically what I want to do is measure by the sum of balance. If I look at here, we want to measure by the sum of the balance. So I'm going to be able to remove this, and then we choose the measure sum of balance. Cool. So here we have investment and cash. Now you can see that we don't have the negative ones because it doesn't show up, right? You can't really show a negative value in a pie chart field. So it removed the debts, essentially, all the credits that we had. So this is pretty cool. And now what we want to do is make sure that we have a way to store in our selection which actually category we clicked on, right? So right now I can't really click on this here. I can't really click. So I want to actually set up a dynamic link to be able to have a way to store that information here in my selection. So I'm going to be able to actually click insert link here. And by default, it's going to be a dynamic link here. So I'm going to click on dynamic link, and essentially I'm going to be able to save the value to the local account type selection. So here, just by doing this, I'm able to actually click on here, and I can see right away that my account type selection in the local variables is, storing the grouping, which is the type. I mean, we could rework those names a bit, but for now they're fine. And the balance sum measure, which is the amount. So if I change and click on another one, I'm going to get the different value here. So that's pretty cool. So that's our pie chart done. Then we're going to be able to actually get the data corresponding to the selection, right? So what we want to do in our finished interface here is to get the total assets and the number here. So let's actually let's get the data first. So we're going to need to create a query to be able to get all accounts that are positive balance, and then the type of account must correspond to the selection that we've selected. So if we have, for example, here, we select cash here, we only get investment here, we only get the investment accounts here, and cash would be those accounts here. So, those would be examples here. So I'm going to go actually into the expression mode here, and I'm going to be able to create my query. So let's create it from scratch here. So local bang, we're going to accounts data. I think we want to call it that. Accounts data subset. Let's call it data subset, sure. And I'm going to be actually creating this in the query record type. So don't forget the comma at the end here. We want to actually add a comma. So I'm going to be targeting the accounts record type, right? So I'm going to select the account. And what we're going to want to do is actually filter and have two filters here on this case. So one of the filters is going to be that the balance must be positive, because we don't want to have an account that has negative balance show up. So I'm going to go for, I want the balance of the account to be positive. So at least more than 0. Now I'll need a paging info. So this is saying here that I don't have a paging info, which is completely fine. So I'm going to actually add a paging info here to just remove this error here, paging info 110. And then the other thing here, so this is, bringing me back the accounts data subset here. If I look at the data here, I've got 4 items, which is 4 accounts here, which is fine. But perhaps what I'm going to do is actually only get the accounts that I click on. So if I click here, the account type selection changes, but nothing here in the data changes. Fair enough. So I'm going to go ahead and actually add another query filter, and its effect will add on top of. And of course, what I'm going to do is make sure that this filter doesn't apply if I haven't selected an account type selection. So before doing anything, I'm going to be using an apply when, and I'm going to use a is not null or empty for account type selection. And then essentially what I'm going to do is make sure that the account dot type dot value is equal to the local account type selection, and essentially I want to map it to this index here. So I can even copy this directly and just put this here into the index. So this already works because we can see that I'm only getting one data point here, so that's fine. And if I change it to another, click here, I can change the data. And if I test it and actually don't have any selection done before, then that actually brings me back the 4 items here. So this is already working. Our data is being changed as we click it. So now I'm going to go back in design mode, and I'm going to bring in the actual rich text here to display the total assets right here. So I'm going to bring in a rich text here, and actually I'm going to do we can do it this way here. So what a good thing that I try to do for rich text is actually to use the WYSIWYG, which is what you see is what you get here editor. And essentially I'm going to start to type what I want to display, total assets. And then potentially I can actually start typing in a dummy number just to see what it looks like. So here right away I want to actually align it to the center, and then I want to make the total assets bigger. So the name of it is going to be bigger, potentially large plus, maybe it's too big. I'm going to go make it large in bold, and here this will be medium plus, right? So we do need to change it because right now it doesn't do anything here, right? But it's good to have the kind of layout and the design right away here, and then we can actually change it in the expression mode. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into expression mode, and a quick tip to actually find the right data here, what you can do is just do Control F, and then you look for whatever dummy data that you actually put in. So here I put, this number here. So this is what I want to change here, and basically what I want to do is sum on all the accounts balance. So I'm going to do a sum of local accounts data subset dot data. And again, I'm taking account data, so I want to do something like this, right? So I want to get the balance of those accounts, and right away this is looking good, but it's not showing me the dollar sign, so I could actually format it, but there's also a dollar function that I can use, which I can wrap my sum with the dollar function, and already I can see the dollar here sign appear. Now you gotta be careful, because if you know that potentially your amounts, the sum of your balance it can be null, then you might have some issues with the dollar sign, with the dollar function. So you might want to do some null checks here. We're gonna assume here that we're always gonna have a number, and it's never gonna be null. But if you have a production ready application, you want to probably be careful about this and actually put some null checks here. Cool. So if we click here, we can see that the total assets changes, which is cool. So that's kind of a left column done. I'm going to go back into my dashboards. So left column, we can see what we got the data corresponding to the selection. We got the total assets done, and that's pretty good. So now we're going to go into the right column here. And so what we're going to be doing is iterate through the number of accounts that we have, right? So that's going to be our step here to be able to actually have a for each iterate through the list of accounts. So I'm going to be able to actually modify this in the columns directly, but for the ease of our process here, we're going to go into expression mode. And so what we're going to be doing is essentially this design here, this is a card layout. So this is one card layout, another one. So we want to create kind of a standard card layout that iterate through it. So I'm going to go into my accounts, and I'm going to find the columns layout, which is empty. So the column, layout, which is empty. And that's the one here. And so essentially what I'm going to do is in the contents, I'm going to put directly a for each, and I'll be iterating through the data of my accounts data subset. Now you want to actually put the dot data here, because otherwise you're not going to be iterating through anything, because it's going to be it's going to reference a data subset, which is not an array, right? So you want to actually reference the array, which is the .data in this case here. And so here what we're going to do is actually create a card layout. Now the card layout needs to be basically transparent, right? So we don't want it to have borders, no shadows. We just want it to be kind of a container for us that we can leverage and use. So show border false. And then what I can do is start to actually put in the contents my structure of my card layouts. So if we look at how we structured it, basically we did a side-by-side layout. And so here what we have is a side-by-side layout with a first element here, another item here, and then another item here. So pretty straightforward, and we'll be able to actually do that. So contents, I'm going to have a side-by-side layout. And I'm going to have 3 items here. So I like to actually lay out the structure of my layout here before I actually start creating those items. So the first one will be the stem field. So this is going to be the stem field. Then the second one, what we're going to have is we're going to have the name of the account. So kind of the details. And this is going to be the balance. Cool. So what we can do here now is actually bring in the components. So first things first is going to be the stem field. We can do the icon to be USD. I believe that's a valid icon here. It's a bit big here, so we might want to actually change the size to be, let's do small. And then I can actually have a color that I can reference, which is going to be content color. I believe that's the one. No, background color. I'm going to put background color, and essentially what I can have access to is the account types color. So in my database, what I have is for each account type, so investment, cash, I've got a specific color. And so I can actually reference this. So I'm going to be able to do every bank item. And what I'm doing here is iterating through a list of accounts. So I want to reference an account, but then the relationship of the type. So I want to do account.type.hex color. Now, potentially this doesn't work because we're not bringing in the type and the hex color. So if I look at my data here, so we might want to actually do something about this because we're just bringing in the account, but not the hex color. So what we're doing here essentially is saying, hey, bring me the account, but then I don't have the type here in my relationship. So I'm going to go back into my local variable here to actually bring in the whole type of the accounts. And I do this by putting in fields. And then it's just a list of fields that I want to bring back. And if I want to bring back all of the type, I can just do account. So I need to start from the account, of course, and then just bring in type. So here, this is going to bring me all of the shallow fields of type. So it's not going to bring me back the relationship of the type, but it's going to bring me back all the fields of type. So if I test here, I can see already that I can have the changes. By the way, if you don't want to click test here, you can just do Control or Command Enter, and that tests the interface directly. Cool. So we have a stem field. It's working. Maybe we want to even make it smaller. Let's see. Maybe we can test out tiny. Let's stick with this for now. And then for the side-by-side item for this one here, what we want to have is something like this, checking and cash. So there's going to be rich text field with a break line here. So we're going to have item, rich text display field, value. We're going to be putting everything into a rich text item. So the cool thing about rich text display fields is that you can actually nest rich text items, and essentially the parent property will apply to all the children properties. So if you have a rich text item at the top, you can actually have its properties propagate to all of the child rich text items. Right, so here what we're going to have is essentially 3 rich text items, or actually 2, and then a break line to actually go to the next line here. So I'm going to do something like this, where I'm going to have a list. Then I'm going to do character 10. So character 10 corresponds to the break line, so to go to the next line. And this will be the, I believe, type of, Yes, this will be the type of the accounts. So here, this one will be the name. So I actually like to put in the name just to have something displayed directly. So this will be FVBang item accounts dot name. Now it's a bit to the side, but we'll bring it back just after, so don't worry about it. Then text in the other rich text item, I'm going to be putting the account dot type dot value. So you see here with those relationships, you can actually reference something that is not in the parent or the root record type. You can actually reference those values directly. And so here, just to make it a bit different, I'm going to style it to be strong so that it's a bit, it's a bold and potentially maybe bigger as well. So let's see what looks good. Yeah, we actually want to probably make its size medium. And this one here, the second one, the type will be emphasis, which will be in italics. Or actually, no. Let's actually just change the color, the style to be secondary, which is going to be kind of grayed out. That looks good. Sorry, it's not secondary, it's standard. No, it's not the style, it's the color. And it's secondary. You see, even with your experience, you get those wrong. So let's bring actually the checking the name here, this item to the left. So the way you do it is actually at the side-by-side item of the stamp, because the stamp is trying to use as much space as the other side-by-side items. So what we want to do is in the side-by-side item, we want to actually say minimize. There we go. And that kind of brings it. So it only takes the space that is necessary. And this is looking good already. And here then the last one that I want to bring in is the balance. So this is going to be just the balance of the account. And that's going to be another rich text display field. So I'm going to have the third item here be a rich text display field. And the value will be a rich text item. So text will be the FVBang item accounts that balance. And I want to have the style be similar to the name. So there's going to be a size medium and a style strong. And of course, what I'm going to do is actually wrap everything not in sum, but in dollar to have the dollar sign appear in there. Now I also want to be able to actually have it aligned to the right, because here it's a bit awkward. It's not exactly aligned. So I'm going to do align rights. And there we go. So this is pretty much it. We can actually click here to see if it actually changes. There we go. So that's pretty cool. And we're going to be able to save the changes. Now, the one last thing here is that it's not really centered to the middle. So what we can do here, this is going to be on the columns layout. So not the column layout, but just the columns layout. So we should go back up here. And the columns layout, what you want to do is align vertical. This is the property that you want to use. And we're going to be able to actually say it's going to be in the middle. Cool, and that actually does it. So click here, save the changes. Cool. So that's for the accounts overview. Let's just make sure that it actually works properly. So if we go into my personal finance landing page, now the changes should appear here in this example, and this is looking good. Total assets here. Cool. So now we're going to go into the goals overview, and it's going to be, I would say there's less complexity, but there's some things that we want to have done here, which might take a bit more challenge. So we're going to ignore for now the new goal action, because that will be the purpose of another video. But right here, what you have is, first of all, we iterate through to have multiple goals. So you could actually say that I only want to display 2 goals or 3 goals if I have, let's say, more than 5, for example. But here we're just going to be displaying all the goals. And then we have, of course, the name of the goal, we have the dates, the target dates, and then we have the balance. So this is saying here, you've saved $5,000 of 10,000. Now we also want to display a color based on the on track. So let's say you have linear savings. So let's say your you have 300 days to save $300, you should be saving $1 per day. That's linear progression. And if you're at the 150th day, but you only saved $100, then you're late. So that's the kind of logic that we want to implement here. If it's green, that means that it's on track. So you're either at the right target. You're at the 150th day and you've saved $150 or more, right? So you're even more on track, or you're off track. So kind of late or on time. So we're going to be able to create this and just start by displaying this. So this will be a side-by-side layout, and then we're going to use a progress bar field, and the color will be a bit of a different story that we have. So here, if I look at here, the data, we want to actually have the root of the card, and then we're going to create a section layout here to actually have the details. Let me actually load back up. There we go. I thought I was some missing things here. Okay, so let's go into the data and declare a goals data to get all the goals in my interface. So I'm going to close this one here. I'm going to close the accounts overview, and I'm going to open the goals overview. So I'm going to go into the expression mode. Actually, let me change just the style of the card here first, because we want to have it match the rest of the style. So show shadow, do not show border, and then the shape will be rounded. Cool. Now go back into expression mode. I'm going to be actually doing the same tip that I showed you before, which is just to collapse those, just the code here, which we have, and we're going to open up a local variables. And that's going to be called goals data. And then I'm going to bring back, either I can do this by bringing the parentheses at the end, and that should be the structure here. So if I show you what it looks like, this is the very simple data. We're going to have local variables here, and then we're going to have the list of components that we're going to be showing. So goals data here, that's going to be a very simple query record type. And I'm going to go for the goal, and pretty much that's going to be it. I'm just going to say that I want to bring in, let's say, 10 goals. I have less than this, but you want to, of course, plan to how you're going to paginate, which goals you're going to show first. Those kind of things you want to actually figure out. So that's the goals here. That's pretty good. I'm going to change the card layout here just to have a section. So I'm going to have a section here, and I'm going to call it goals in capital letters, and then the divided line will be below content, I believe. Nope. Above content. There we go. Now let's go into the expression mode here, goals, and in the contents, this is where we're going to have the iteration through to have a side-by-side layouts, and then the progress bar. So for each, and I'm going to iterate through the goals data. Again, you want to actually you want to index into the data to actually have the list of goals. And this is going to be a list of components, because if we think about it, what we have is we have a side-by-side layout and then a progress bar. So we have two things here. You could also use a section layout here, but just for the sake of this, I'm going to show that way of just having essentially a list of components. So side-by-side layouts, items, we'll have two of them. So two items, and the first one will be rich text display field. And so the value here will be two rich text items. So we're going to follow the same structure as we had with the list of accounts. So here we're going to have a rich text item, and text here will be double. So again, I could also just use one layer of rich text item, but I like this flexibility here. So essentially what we're going to be doing here is display two things. So let me actually comment and explain what we're doing here. We want to display the name, and then we want to display the date. And so essentially that's going to be it. So here, this is the name of the goal, and this is the target date. So here, text heavy bang item, and again, I'm targeting a goal, so I want to use this goal.name, and this is going to be heavy bang item dot goal goal dot target dates. Cool. So let's look at this. So I'm wondering, goals data is null. So let's actually, yeah, there we go. Just test it up and it actually brings in the data. So here I've got, it's working. That's fine. I probably want to change it to be maybe in bold and then the text in grayed out. So this is going to be style strong. And here this is going to be color secondary. This is already starting to look good. Now the problem here is that this format of data is okay, but not great. So maybe I want to actually change it. So what you can do is use a function like text. Now there's a couple of others of those functions here, but we're going to use the text function here. And I can actually define how to display that. So I think what we want to do is essentially have a structure like this where we have day. So you can just experiment with this. So what we're seeing here is display to me the day of the dates in a different format. So here you could actually continue to say, I want to have the name of the weekday here. I just want to do the day, which is the 26th. And then I can have the month. So just add an M here to just have a different format to display. And then just a year here, I think would be fine. Cool. So 26th April 2023, that works well. Even for international crowds, it works well. And now I can actually do the last piece here, which is the number, the balance out of the target amount. So here I'm going to be able to do another, so I'm going to close this side-by-side item, and then here I'm going to have a rich text display field. Right away I know I want to actually align it to the end, or the right, I believe. Yes, right. And so what this will do is just push it to the right, and then here I'm going to have a value. I'm going to have a bunch of rich text items. So actually 3 of them I want to have. The reason is that I have a bit of bold here, non-bold, and then bold. So my first item will be the balance. So goal dot balance. This will be the off. If I can look here, there we go. So this is working. And then this is going to be the target amount. Cool. Of course, I'm going to wrap everything into $ to display properly the value. Like so. And then I can just add a style to be strong so that it's bold here. And there we go. So now we have the actual display that we need. So this is looking good. Now we need to actually bring in the progress bar field to actually display the progress bar of the goal. Now let me show you what the challenge here is. Because what you need to do is actually compute the completion percentage, because we don't store it into the record. We actually need to compute it dynamically when we display the field. So we need to compute the completion percentage, and we need to compute the time completion. So essentially here, the percentage is the balance divided by the target amount. So that's just the straight up completion percentage. Then what we have is the time completion is the date of today minus the start dates. So kind of the total duration, actually the duration remaining divided by the total duration, which is the target dates minus the start dates. And that gives us the percentage of how much time has elapsed, in this goal. So what I'm going to do is actually create kind of a capsule of local variables and then bring in the progress bar field accordingly. So let's consider where we are here. So we're iterating through the goals data, and then we have a side-by-side layout, and now we're going to actually have a local variable, and this is where I'll be actually doing my completion percentage, and then my time completion. And then I'm going to bring in a progress bar field, which will actually display like this. So a couple of things here. I need to bring in, of course, a completion percentage, but also I need to actually change a bit of the styling. So here in the style, I think you can have the thick. So I'm going to select the thick style here. And so now we have the completion percentage. And so essentially here we can see that there's a bit of a strange thing because we're supposed to have more than 1%, because here we have $5,000 saved of 10,000. So it's probably more than this, right? So just the difference here that we need to do is just because the percentage is expecting a number by 100. So I just need to multiply it by 100, and that gives me the actual percentage here. Now we get into a bit of the interesting piece here, which is to change the color based on if it's on track or not. So here we're going to actually need to define the time completion. And so as I said in the actual subtasks here, so this is the today minus start date divided by target dates minus start dates. And so we're going to be able to actually do this structure. So I have my kind of fraction here set up, and we're going to be doing today minus the FVBang item goal fields start dates divided by, let me actually make some space here to make it clearer. Divided by the, just verifies target dates minus start dates. So FVBang item there we go. And so essentially now, if I want to actually make sure that I'm computing properly the values, you can always use as a debugging tool the instructions of a field. So if I actually want to display the completion percentage, time completion, sorry, I can actually get the values here. So I can see 60%. I guess because this goal is late, you know, we're past due, so this is beyond 1, but that's okay. So here I'm going to be able to actually change the color to be, so my condition will be if the time completion is above the completion percentage, then that's a problem. So completion, time completion is above local Bang completion percentage, then that's negative. Otherwise we use positive, and you can use the colors that you want, of course. Here, those two are late because, you know, we're late on those goals, which is okay. So that's pretty much what we can do here. And then I just want to add a key like so here to say on track and off track. So pretty simple. I'm just going to use a design mode here directly and drag and drop a rich text display fields in a section layout. And then I'm going to use the WYSIWYG editor to bring in essentially, I think, two icons here. So circle, insert. So we're going to have on track, and then we're just going to duplicate this and say off track, and then we just need to change the color to be here negative. And this one will be positive. And that's it. That's it for the goals. I'm going to save the changes. We'll, of course, as I said, we'll actually come back to add the record action here. So we might actually want to do some, potentially we'll go here or here, we'll see. But we'll add a new record action to add a new goal, but that will be in the next video. All right, so now we're actually going to be able to go into the transactions, which will be the easiest that we have done of the three, because we're going to use a ready to use component here. So let's actually go back into my transactions overview, and I'm going to open up the subtasks. So we're going to be doing the same thing, just going into the card layout, changing the shape to be rounded, hiding the border, showing the shadow, and then bringing in the section layout. And that will be transactions. So divider line will be above content. And now what we just need to do is just bring in a line chart field. And we'll be doing a grouping and then a measure, and that will be super simple. So I'm going to go in and actually look for a line chart. And here I want to select my record type to be the transaction record type. And so here I have some kind of default date grouping, which is not good for us. So what we're going to do is actually open up this little date grouping, and we're going to go for month of year in the time interval. And then I'm also going to make sure that I don't show time intervals with no data, because I'm not interested in this. And so here I can actually choose, the name of the month is probably fine here in our case. And I don't want to count by the number of transactions, but I want to count by the sum of transaction amounts. So here in the measure here, I'm going to be able to go in and say sum of the transaction amounts. Right away, this is looking good. And now I just need to change a couple of things here. I can do, let's actually remove the show legend. Show tooltips will actually keep it. And I want to change x-axis style. I want to change to none. Y-axis style to none. There we go. I just want to have this be very simple here. Now we can see that some of the decimals here are being a bit weird, so we can always, change them to only show a specific value here. But we're going to stick to here for now as this transaction. So we're going to save the changes here. And then I'm going to go back into my personal finance landing page. And right away, I can see that this is looking good. We've basically done our dashboards. They can look different between a desktop or a narrow desktop here. But we have essentially what we were expecting, and we can have something that clicks and changes. So here, of course, we'll need to actually add a button to be able to add a new goal, but that will be in a later video. So there we go. I hope you had value from this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video of solution for that Interface 103 course. Thanks.